The problem with just saying America is Egypt is there is no context to the statement. Some people may have noticed a wave of America is Egypt information spreading across social media. And I can assure you, I've had nothing to do with that. Usually when you hear the information, it is very superficial and has very little depth to it. It makes it very easy for some pseudo-brainwashed historian to just say, America is not Egypt, Egypt is Egypt. And then they'll go on to recite insignificant facts that they learned about Egypt when they were spoon-fed up the rectum by some academic they trust. And now that spoonful has floated up the rectum and to the heart. So now they take it personal. How dare you say America is Egypt after all the bullshit I've learned? I've seen the pyramids, buddy. I've been there. That is definitely Egypt. You struck a nerve with their whole perception of ancient history, a subject they may have felt with some personal esteem. So it's only natural they may be a little butthurt. After all, they did loosen their loins to get that spoonful up there. And now you're telling them that spoonful was no good? You'd be mad too, as many people are the first time they realize all of the lies they've been butt-fed. Feedings aside, there is no legitimate reason to take their information as truth, considering the worlds of information hidden by these institutions of controlled academia unto this day. When someone pukishly says, America is not Egypt, understand they have become shills for the establishment. According to them and their position, all history confirming their position must be completely true. They are locked in to the terms of their silent agreement with the works of evil men. Agents of the beast will gladly stand on the blood of the righteous and wave the flag for the works of those evil men if it validates their position, especially if it doesn't require the work necessary to develop their own nuanced opinion about a certain subject. To completely grasp this subject matter, the superficial history of ancient Egypt that has been propagandized will not do, because that narrative, as we have learned thus far, is completely full of holes. Whether it's the construction of the pyramids, the chronology of Egyptian dynasties, the Crusades, or the discovery of the pyramids by Napoleon, their version of Egyptian history is completely inconsistent. A significant problem with just saying the statement, America is not Egypt, is the fact that that statement alone literally denies the pre-Columbian antiquity or scale of American civilizations, many of which predate, were larger than Egypt, and who practiced the same traditions and customs that were exclusively attributed to Egypt. In an earlier episode, we highlighted the upper Mississippi Basin, specifically the areas around St. Louis, Mound City, and Cahokia. We even spoke to Harry Hubbard about his amazing discovery of the tombs of Cleopatra, Mark Antony, and Alexander the Great in Illinois. In this episode, we detail the lost civilizations of the Middle and Lower Mississippi. In the first episode, we addressed the Mississippi River and its relationship to the great river from the Bible, not the Nile, but the Euphrates. We also showed how the Nile in Africa does not fit the biblical description of the great river, but the Mississippi fits perfectly. Furthermore, we examined the etymology behind the word and defined the word Nile as a Greek improper noun, which means tributary, creek, or stream, and not the proper name of a river, as assumed by most people. In the episode, we concentrated our search around the vicinity of Mound City, which was essentially destroyed to build the city of St. Louis. We also investigated the significance behind the name of St. Louis and showed the relationship between King Louis IX, St. Louis, and their connection with Egypt during the Crusades. In this episode, we dig deeper into Louisiana Territory, specifically the lower Mississippi region south of Memphis, Tennessee, which seems like a good place to start. According to the classical narrative, Memphis was the capital of Lower Egypt, but also its most northern city, which symbolically recognized the union between the two kingdoms, Upper and Lower Egypt. The city of Memphis, Tennessee, was another major U.S. city built upon an ancient American civilization, just like St. Louis. The city of Memphis has remnants all over the city, not just in the outskirts, even downtown. Chickasaw Heritage Park was at one time a Chickasaw fortress, but was conquered by the French in the early 1700s and renamed Fort Assumption. The Tennessee Encyclopedia states that over 2,400 blacks and Indians fought with the French during their takeover of Chickasaw Fort. One would wonder, how did the French find so many cooperative blacks and Indians to fight the Chickasaw a half century before the apex of the North American slave trade? How could all those so-called blacks fighting for the French have been African if there were barely any so-called Africans on the continent at the time? And the few that were there were in Virginia. Something to think about. Another thing to think about is how Memphis has always been one of the historically blackest cities in America. It should come as no surprise that most of the people who hail from Memphis are indeed related and are ancestors of the conquered Chickasaw Nation, who over the time following assimilated into French culture prior to 1820 and American culture afterwards. The historically black neighborhood of Orange Mound in Memphis apparently got its name from the orange shrubs on the former Diedrich plantation. Not a mound, apparently. Surprised they didn't just call it Orange Bush, if that was the case. But these aren't the only mounds built over by the city of Memphis. The Chucalissa Mounds lie just to the south on the east side of the river. They were discovered during the construction of Shelbytown Negro Park in the 1930s. This mound complex has been attributed to the Middle Mississippian culture that extended up to Cahokia and throughout the Mississippi region, demonstrating a relationship that spread just as far. Yet the issue, as is the case with Big Mound or Mound City, St. Louis, the current city essentially destroyed any areas that could now be studied by modern archaeologists. And as is the case across the Mississippi region, the French are hiding its secrets.